Good evening and welcome to the Monomoy Regional School Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, August 14th. This meeting will be broadcast to Channel 22 as well as live streamed and recorded to the MRSC YouTube channel. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. The first item on our agenda is adjournment to executive session. We're going to take a roll call vote to adjourn to executive session pursuant to GLC 30A Section 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares it. Regular open session to resume at approximately 6:30 p.m. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Rose? Mr. Schiff?
Aye.
Ms. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Gibbs?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, and we will adjourn to executive session at 6:01. Call the meeting back to order. It is 6:30 p.m. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Yeah.
Can we do both at the same time? As presented in our packet?
Why not?
Was presented in
we?
the packet?
Because, I don't know, do we have anybody who's going to abstain?
I will.
I might have to do them separately.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
All right, let's have a motion.
I will move that we accept the July 11th meeting minutes.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
All in favor?
I
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you. Moving on to the July 31st minutes. Do I have a motion?
Yeah. Do you want to retry? I'm sorry. Jessica,
I had this one on top, and this is the one that I...
Oh, she's not
so
abstaining?
she's not abstaining from July 11th.
So we are removing the abstention, so it's a unanimous
Yes.
passing of the first minutes, okay. Workshop minutes.
Okay. July 31st workshop minutes. Do I have a motion?
I make motion to accept the July 31st minutes.
Second?
I'll
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain?
Abstain.
Jessica abstains
Yeah, dear.
and oppose. Okay. Moving on to public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and additional time is at the discretion of the chairperson. Do we have anybody here for public comment tonight?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a community representative, Charles Gruska, 6 T-Berry Ave, Harwich. As a community representative on the school council at Monomoy High, and a grandparent of one of that good size of group of high school students you heard about at your workshop who choose not to use the restrooms during the school day to avoid getting caught up in inappropriate behavior. I want to thank and congratulate the school committee for the attentive recognition and reception and attention that you gave to Ms. Police, Mr. Alexander, and Ms. Dudley at your July 31st workshop, and for the support to their recommendations that they brought forward as reflected in your discussion about school committee goals for the upcoming year, which is on the agenda for tonight. I see that included in the goals for agenda discussion later on. I didn't know that those individuals were going to be on the agenda, so I was really glad that I was able to attend. Fortunately, inclement weather inland postponed a concert I was supposed to perform at, and enabled me to be here after spending all of your time talking about why we should have that as a public televised meeting. So I'm so glad that I was here, because that has been, and I think I've shared this with you before, that has been a major topic at school council meetings for almost 2 years now at the high school level. And the council has been urging the administration of the building to move forward with the administration and get what we were learning out to the school committee for their awareness, and really out to the general public, whom I believe 99% of the general public is unaware of the level of dysregulation among students in schools, not just Monomoy, schools in general today. And I think, what you heard, many of you were probably surprised at some of what you heard, and I think most people would be as well. So we would hope that that information could get out there publicly to support you in the efforts and the recommendations and the support that you want to give to this. We hope that the school committee will vote positively to establish the positions, the 2 positions that were recommended by the building administrators in tonight's on the agenda tonight. Some thoughts on a personal level, as someone who's been almost our entire career has been involved in student behavior as a result, and who's lectured on it widely, lectured here at Monomoy on it through the efforts of Joy and Melissa, who've invited me in. 42 years ago, during my first year as a school principal, after serving 8 years as a school counselor and 2 years as a teacher of middle school students in a substantially separate program for serious chronic offenders who were significant disruptors of their school. You heard that your workshop, and Melissa McGuire explained it, we really don't have that program in Monomoy, but we did it in my district, and I was specifically hired for that position, and I became principal, and I began to say to whomever would listen during my first year as a principal that every school should have one staff member whose sole responsibility and sole focus was discipline and student behavior. I believe that because I saw discipline as a teaching process. That's what I learned from a counseling background, special education background, lecture widely on, and that process involves consequences as part of as one of the teaching tools, but all the other teaching tools that you were presented on the sheet at the workshop by the administrators. And so I began to spread that word out, and I believed that it needed to be spread because I saw how very time-consuming and how important consistency over a long period of time was in the effort. Most of the major chronic behavior problems in school were not caused by the school or the school system. They're caused by other forces, and the schools are being asked to resolve those situations and be accountable to those kids learning, despite the fact that they didn't, for the most part, put kids in a situation with interfering with their learning. So I just want to share that the administrators at the high school here, through the school council, and now the Monomoy School Committee are the first people who have listened to that message after 42 years. I didn't think I would live to see anyone hear that message and want to act on it that I believed in for so long. So I want to thank you, and I want to say good for you for the actions you're taking in supporting this program, and hopefully that will come to fruition tonight. Just a word of caution, restorative justice is a new term, but the practice has been attempted for years by schools who understand discipline as a teaching practice. However, back in the day, we didn't have to document everything. We didn't have to time consume so much time and effort into documenting what we were doing. And it's just so discouraging because that's time that could be better used to actually working with students and working on their... It's kind of like the dilemma that evolved in special education, where you began to have to fill out all these reams of papers and forms. Any of you have gone through that process, IEP process and all, to just document what we were already doing, because some school systems weren't doing it, but school systems who were, we wish that we were spending more time with the students. My experience is that it won't be a panacea. The state has really had an impact on the consequences that school administrators can apply, as you've heard, and it doesn't work as well in isolation. It's a lot longer. It's not as successful, and I think the reason the research supports is because the research has shown, well, it reduced out-of-school suspensions. And it did. And, that's already happened here at Monomoy. So you were having some discussion about how are we going to evaluate this program or these positions. I would be careful about trying to judge it on all kinds of data regarding student behavior because, and rather to look at it as what has it done for the administrators? And how are they better able to use their time? And what are they better able to do for all of the other kids in the school? Because there would now be one person who's sole responsible with no other responsibility toward the school to focus on discipline, doing it the right way, doing it the thorough way, and limited, of course, by the handcuffs that the state has somewhat put on it, that I don't think you're going to change unless you get the school committee associations to really take a look at this issue and kind of, they threw out the baby with the bathwater, in my opinion, and they went a little bit too far. And the approach works best when you have consequences, but what was absent in most schools was this whole restorative process of how are we going to help this youngster not to have all this repetitive behavior. Finally, you had some discussion about How will this be accepted out in the community? How will you deal with a certain board, perhaps out in the community? It may be a little difficult in that you're coming in through the back door. This came up during the budget process, public hearing process, under a different name of a title of a position. And so now positions are being established kind of not in the public purview as a result of, a workshop that was, not really broad, well, wouldn't be widely watched anyway, perhaps, but so that may be an issue. But I heard you have the teacher support. I absolutely believe you would, because my daughter's a veteran high school and middle school teacher. I have a lot of contact with people in the field. They are crying for this everywhere. They are leaving the field because they can't handle what's going on in terms of student behavior. It's a whole new dynamic, hard for us to understand it. Social media is a factor, other factors are come into play. So I think you're going to be able to, I think you're going to have the teacher support on this, I hope. And I will share with you that as far as the board you're concerned about, a couple of the members through their office hours have had extensive discussion about this issue with members of the community. And I think they've been brought on board, or at least they heard what you were hearing on July 31st, well before July 31st. And I think there's been some good groundwork laid there. Two final items of appreciation or point of information from the school council. We were very excited during the year, near the end of the year, when Principal Police brought in some sample swatches of furniture, which are much the furniture that's worn out and was not included in the FY24 budget. I got to sit in that furniture at the beginning of your July 31st workshop, noticed that it was still here, so inquired as to what's happening. And the good news is that the furniture has been ordered, and I think it's due for shipment early in September to replace, so that completes the needs from the FY24 budget. The school committee will now have met every need that was brought forward in the FY24 budget. FY25 budget, very thrilled, a high priority for these positions that you're going to be discussing and voting on tonight. I also want to remind you there was $30,000 of science equipment that was requested from the high school that the school council supported. That was not able to be put into the budget. There was, at the public hearing, there was discussion that, there was comment that, surpluses might develop somewhere along the line. So we're hopeful, just like something developed that enabled the furniture to come on board, that something will develop for that new science equipment. The high school has not upgraded its science equipment since the building began operation, and it is using equipment that is no longer being used in colleges or out in the work world of science. And so it's an important area. So I didn't want that, the council doesn't want that forgotten. And so we hope to keep it on the front burner in your mind, especially as you're looking at closing out the budget for this year, fourth quarter reports and things like that, that perhaps you want to stay on top of that, and we appreciate it if you will. So keep up the great work. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. And okay, moving on to reports and discussions. The first item is the school handbook updates for the 2024-2025 school year.
Hi, Joy Jordan, Community Engagement Coordinator. I'm just going to go over a couple of the really global handbook updates that were made across the website. Staffing updates, obviously, for any staffing changes. We've added the new mission, vision, core values, and strategic plan that were agreed on earlier this year. We've added the portrait of a graduate because that wasn't quite final for last year's handbooks. And the 4 buildings just clarified the attendance procedures to continue the consistency on that.
So,
Dr. Kelly is not here, the principal of Chatham Elementary, but she just had some really straightforward updates to her handbook. So nothing that I think would merit much discussion. Many of them are the global ones I mentioned already, and then she just clarified again the after-school clubs and their goal of getting all students to participate in those. So now I will hand it over to HES.
Hi everyone, I'm Allison Joy. I'm the assistant principal at Harwich Elementary School. We had some pretty simple updates as well. We updated our staff list to show the new staff. We have 3 new staff this year. Susan Ash is our one of our special education teachers that is new for us. Jennifer Brown and Amy Webster are also new instructional assistants with us this year. We updated our door numbers for arrival and dismissal. Our door 3 is now door 15 and our door 2 is now door 17. We noticed that in some spots in our dismissal times, they just had different times based on the old time that we used to dismiss. So now our times are correct. Early dismissal is at 1:20 and end of the day is 2:05. And we've updated our student ambassador statement to say that 4th grade students are encouraged to participate on a volunteer basis as part of the student ambassadors. The student ambassadors collaborate to develop and showcase character traits to our whole school community at our monthly All Shark meetings. So those are our updates. Any questions? No? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sean Dutch, the assistant principal at Monomoy Middle School. Also, a few straightforward changes. The first one's the principal's letter. For the schedule, we updated the change to trimesters. The report card and progress reporting schedule we updated. Under code of conduct, we just put some language in there to address social media issues that arise in school that occur outside of school, things that carry over into the school day. And then we updated the search policy to include the use of dogs, Fritz with the Harwich Police Department, and the language is aligned with what the high school uses. That's it for our changes. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Anne Marie Rita, assistant principal at the high school. I work primarily with grades 8 and 9. So we have some updates, and I was just going to highlight the ones in bold. Similar to Mr. Dutch, we updated some language to include internet use outside of school that then carries into school, that we address that, and it may, involve discipline. We also included a list of restorative interventions. It's not an exhaustive list, but it includes some of the interventions that we use prior to suspension. The parking pass system, we are a growing community, and our parking lots are at max capacity. And so we are discussing how to ensure that especially our seniors are all getting parking spots in the back lot, because at times they leave, they go to their internships, and then they come back and there's nowhere to park. So that's in development, and we included it in the handbook. We included some additional suspension language on page 61. That was in regards to significant social conflicts. I can read the line to you. So students who engage in significant social conflicts resulting in a disruption to school. So disruption to school assembly. That at times that may be a school offense which will result in suspension. And then finally, unfortunately, this is the world we're living in now, we had to include language about intentional videotaping of fights. We had a social media account that was created this year, Monomoy Fights, and students were videotaping and uploading
videos to that social media account. So we needed to include language that is not permissible and may result in school-based discipline. Does anyone have any questions?
Just thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on our list is the formation of restorative justice positions, and we're bringing this forward from our workshop and executive session today. And does anyone want to have any questions? Want to bring to the front?
I think.
Oh, sorry. I skipped ahead.
Touch on it?
I apologize. I jumped ahead. I forgot.
We thought maybe you missed us.
I do
Just
miss
thought
you.
maybe we would go over this again. Just
I'm so
more,
sorry.
I think
forgot.
For the
briefly.
Yeah.
Just
I love to hear you talk, so I apologize.
Oh, Lord. Jen Police, proud principal, Monomoy Regional High School. My counterpart,
Abby Dudley, proud principal, Monomoy Middle School.
Interesting trend in the conversation this evening, which is a good segue into our proposal. And I want to talk a little bit about, and I want to thank you for the conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago, but I had proposed this back in November, and it wasn't something that was initially put forward, and I think we were hoping that discipline data was going to improve, but as we rounded out to the end of the school year, and we realized that we are here again with a rising problem in conduct referrals, and as we talked about here at the high school, we've seen over 2,300 referrals a year in the last couple of years, which is a rise of over 1,000 more from FY22. Our suspensions have increased from 37 to 63 and 57 respectfully in 24. 11 of those included fights, which, as Ms. Rita discussed in our handbook changes, we had to put some language in there regarding the implication of those that are involved in videotaping and disseminating that said video. Our enrollment is up to currently 755 students enrolled to enter the high school in September, and that does not include any new registrations that are currently not in Aspen, and that's an increase from when I started. We were 597. That was back in 2015, and we are now closer to 800 than we were 700. So, and just for context, and I know we had a discussion about suspension and that, we have a significant number. Abby has done a really nice job of reducing hers, but just for context, in 2018, when suspension was permissible in a different way, it is not anymore, and I will talk about that a little bit. The high school had 225 incidents which resulted in suspension. In today's world, that is not acceptable. Hence why we are proposing positions that can help us navigate some of the rising challenges that we are experiencing and implore some of those important restorative practices to re-engage students in their education. That's it in a nutshell. Ms. Dudley.
During workshop, we looked at the conduct and suspension referral rate for Monomoy Middle School, and we see a little bit of a different trend at the middle school. We've flatlined in our number of conduct referrals, and we have significantly decreased our suspensions, which at first glance looks great, and we're meeting all the demands of the Department of Education. But when we look at the students who are involved in the referrals and then the suspensions, what we're seeing is the trend where it is the same students. So we're really worried about these students who are repeat offending despite our attempts at addressing the behavior. So the positions that we're talking about today, we're looking to be able to focus on those students who, despite intervention at the level that we're providing it now, are not making adequate progress with their social, emotional, and behavioral functioning.
So just to highlight the changes in Mass General Law, which happened in November of 2022, the revised law says that schools must consider alternative methods to re-engage students in the learning process, and they cannot suspend a student until alternative remedies have been employed, and the use and results of those remedies must be documented. So as discussed, when you have a student that is a chronic offender, the time commitment and the interventions to that one student is now significant, and you can no longer remove a kid's access from their education, and we believe that anyway, and we always have. But when you're talking about rising challenges like dysregulation, the impacts of social media, cell phones, the legalization of marijuana, that's changed the landscape of schools. And schools mirror society, and we all know that society is in conflict right now, and we experience that on a daily basis here.
So while all these new challenges are coming up in our day, I think it's important to consider that students' mental health is greatly affected, and when we have students in our classrooms with significant mental health concerns and issues with regulation, it's not only problematic for that child, but causes a disruption to the learning environment. So peers' learning is being interrupted as well.
And I think it's important to acknowledge the work that our classroom teachers are doing on a daily basis, and the scope of their job has changed significantly, whether they are managing a student's emotional and behavioral health. That in and of itself, that is that's a distraction to learning too. And it's not necessarily, it's not a bad thing, but it's another added layer of an expectation for our classroom teachers, and they've met that challenge, and they've done a sensational job, and I believe that's why our school is growing, and we're closer to 800 than we were 700. I think this is a place, and this is a district where people want their children to be, but that is coming at a significant cost to our teachers too. And sometimes I know that they're looking to us for more support. They do understand the changes to the law. They do understand that we are restricted with what we can and cannot do. But I do think that considering a Unit A position where there's a single focus on student management and those chronic offenders where you are constantly trying to re-engage kids and implore restorative practices, I think we'll see some changes there and some regulation to our school climate.
So just to provide some examples of ways that at the middle school and the high school that we have implemented alternative remedies to suspension. So some strategies that we have used are mediation, conflict resolution, collaborative problem solving. We do a great deal of creating individual positive behavior support plans for students, but as it stands now, it's the administration, with partnership with the counseling, but that's creating those plans, implementing them, doing the tracking, doing the incentive building. But those plans are shown to be highly effective. We have done short-term alternative programming, provided one-to-one shadowing of students, provided direct instruction, family support meetings. We could go on, but I think when you start to look at what providing an alternative remedy actually looks like, you begin to see the need for somebody who has more of a singular focus on this type of support, because none of this will work well unless these things are implemented with fidelity, and that's where you see something like an individual student behavior plan. If that's not implemented with fidelity, you're not going to see the shift in student behavior. But I think educators in the room have all witnessed when these things are done well, you can really see a shift in behavior that not only benefits the classroom learning environment, but has the potential to kind of change the trajectory of a child's self-concept and life goals.
Questions? Mr. Schiff?
Madam Chair, question, Abby and Jen. It might be difficult to make a projection, but what percentage would you expect by putting these positions in that suspensions would decrease by?
So at the middle school, we've really changed our practices with suspension. So if you remember, we dropped dramatically by 40 suspensions from the prior year. So for us, my hope would be that we would drop slightly, but what I'm looking to see from our data is the students who are repeating. So it's for us, you can only suspend around certain behaviors, and at the middle school, they, they're not engaging in such egregious things, where at the high school, things would be an automatic suspension. So for the middle school, I imagine our suspension rates to move down slightly, but our overall number of conduct referrals would be, correct. I would hope that would drop. And then looking specifically at those repeat offenders, because when you think about behavior, even when it's not pro-social behavior that we would like to see, is always a means of communication. So your kids that are consistently repeat offenders, it's more than whatever that small action is in time. They're giving us a message, and so we're really looking to listen to what they're saying through their behavior to respond there.
And I think student engagement will increase too, because a lot of those kids that are popping up in the referral data, they're significantly disengaged in the learning process in general. And like, the law dictates what we can and cannot suspend. So like Abby said, my issues are a little bit more significant. They do involve drugs and sometimes weapons, assaults. Those are the things that the law dictates that you can suspend for. So that's what you see in that data. I would like to see, like Abby said, just the referrals, the chronic referrals, while they might seem low level, if they're all the time, that's impacting engagement and learning in the classroom. That should decrease significantly. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll just make a comment. I thank you for this, and thank you for your persistence. Really appreciated the workshop presentation. It really spoke to me. I think it spoke to all of us, so thank you.
I think we should thank you, so.
I agree.
Don't thank me, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Have a great evening. Can we
Yes.
move on?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And so in that note, bringing it forward from the workshop this evening where we were talking about the positions, we had looked at the job descriptions, and I think that we are ready to take a vote in the public session. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept the formation of restorative justice positions as defined in our packet for Unit A and Unit B. Would that be appropriate?
I think so.
I will second.
Thank you. Mr. Schiff, second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next on the list is the first reading of the 2024-2025 MRSC goals. Oh, these are the things you were looking for. Yes. I got what you needed. Okay. So this is a first read. Tina, do you want me to read them?
Sure, why not?
So,
Rounding up. Okay.
does everybody have theirs? First goal, the MRSC will advocate for affordable and attainable housing to recruit and sustain high-quality teachers and staff. We will also monitor and address any housing challenges that might affect student enrollment, causing families to leave the area. We have 3 action steps listed. Create a cross-district task force to discuss and develop a statement of support for attainable housing. Build opportunities for the school committee and town boards to discuss recruitment and sustain high-quality employees. Support the MRHS Career Education Internship Program to initiate a conversation with Housing Assistance Corporation. This is a continuation of last year's goal. Some of these things have been started, and we'd like to continue to work on them. Do we have any feedback and anything?
Actually, I have a question to the group, because as I was looking at this, create a cross district task force, I wanted us to clarify what district meant. Because when we talked about this last year, I believe the goal was to go across the Cape as much as we could, because we were having conversations with Nauset. But then when Betty and I were typing these up, I saw the word district, and then I thought, well, does that mean in our district, in our Monomoy district? So I wanted to clarify what we meant.
Or even just what do we choose for it to
Right.
be this year? Because
Exactly.
last year it was, we were trying to do Cross
Yeah.
Cape.
Right.
But perhaps that's not the way you
Yeah.
should do. Scott?
I think that's what you meant, and I think it might be important. I mean, you have the town boards, but it's sort of like cross-district and cross-municipalities. Like, I think we're all, school districts and towns alike are all in the same boat when it comes to this challenge.
Okay, so, and that was our understanding last year. I just didn't know, do we need any clarification? Do we need a different word, or do we all understand what we mean?
I took that as across different towns.
Okay, good.
That's how
All
I
right.
took it in terms of, across different school districts.
Okay.
That's how I read that.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that. Everybody, okay. All right, thanks, thank you.
Anything else on number 1? Okay. Goal number 2, the MRSC will support a diversity, equity, and inclusion audit within our district. Action steps, they're all together. Work with the administration to identify and secure funding for the audit, review the administration's recommendations regarding the scope of the audit, receive updates on DEI professional development and any opportunities for continuing education. I know that I had a thought about this after we turned these in. For number 2, instead of reviewing, should it be working with the administration's recommendations regarding the scope of the audit?
My comment would be yes, because when I was typing the draft up, I actually did put the word working, and I didn't want to duplicate it for number 1, so I changed it to review.
Okay.
So I'm fine with that, if anybody, it's like,
I'm fine with it, and last night, we had a meeting with the Diversity, Equity, Belonging, Inclusion, or Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Advisory Committee. And one of the things that we had talked about is really focusing our next meeting on, talking about the equity audit, and when you talk about the scope, really to talk about the scope, like what is that group's hope that they hope to see come out of the scope as, so that's one of the collective voices I hope to inform my side of the administration on.
Fantastic.
so do we want to change a word, or does that matter?
I think we can change 2 to working with the administration's recommendations.
And can I ask, is that the kind of thing that we're going to have to come back from your first reading, or are we accepting it?
Can we accept it as is here?
If you would agree,
If everyone's okay with it, we can accept it as is here, so we don't have to do another first reading next meeting.
Is everybody
Yes.
okay with that word, or working with?
Yes.
Anybody opposed? Okay. So we'll mark out review. Okay.
Okay to move to number 3? Number 3, the MRSC will recognize and highlight Monomoy's decade of success in educational thought leadership and student achievement. Action steps are support the community engagement coordinator in the development of a public relations and local media campaign on a quarterly basis, participate in opportunities to engage and include the community, define the principles, culture, and character which set MRSC apart from other districts.
I have an addition for 3, and I'm just thinking that it might be better saying define the messaging based on the principles, culture, and character. Because that should all add up to what is the message.
Right.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. Define the messaging based on the principles, culture, and character.
Anything else for 3?
I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but let me ask, because we are asking our community engagement coordinator to help, to support us, and I'm hoping that she's okay with this goal. I don't know if that's appropriate to put you on the spot. Do you, yeah. Would you mind if everybody's okay with that?
Treasurer, Community Engagement Coordinator. I think it sounds great. Obviously, I have some specific questions about exactly how you envision it happening and your level of involvement in directing that messaging, but I think those details could be worked out at another time.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Number 4, the MRSC will support discipline improvements at MRHS and MRMS using the restorative justice approach, resulting in a decrease in the overall number of incidents. The action steps to review job description for the 2 restorative justice positions at MRHS and MRMS, support implementation of the restorative justice approach at MRHS and MRMS, and monitor quarterly data. Questions, concerns, changes? Adjustments? All right, number 5, the MRSC will review and support the implementation of the strategic plan. Action steps are receive ongoing updates throughout the year that highlight the 3 key pillars: portrait of a graduate, being and wellness, learning and academics. Review professional development opportunities that are aligned with the strategic plan, including trauma-informed care and mental health support. I had one suggestion. Number 2, at the review professional development opportunities. Would it sound better to say, work with the administration to improve professional development opportunities for MRSD staff that are aligned with the strategic plan, including trauma-informed care and mental health support? Or is it just too many words?
Might have to read it again,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Work with the administration to improve professional development opportunities for MRSD staff that are aligned with the strategic plan, including trauma-informed care and mental health support.
It sounds more proactive, work with to improve, as opposed to just review. Review is
yeah.
very passive,
Right.
so.
You approving?
I don't know, I'll, for myself, yes, I think it works, great.
Excellent. Okay. To improve. Anyone else have feedback for 5? Okay. All righty then.
Again, based on all those minor details, we're going to move forward with the vote at the next meeting.
Correct. All right then.
All right, so it's just 3 edits, basically.
Correct.
Okay?
There's the on my agenda.
And this will come back for a vote.
Thank you, everybody, for your feedback. Next item on the list is the approval of student activity account, class of 2029.
Good evening, school committee. Michael McMillan, I'm school business manager. So the first item on the agenda for you from me is to create a new student activity account for the class will graduate 2029 as they're coming to the high school. So this allows them to collect, fundraise, and then spend funds for things like field trips and other fun stuff, particularly as they get closer to graduation. So we come every year to create a new one as we new class joins the high school, and it's good practice for us to bring this in front of the school committee for approval.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Shedd?
Question, Michael, over this period of time, because obviously this is the number of years, how much money would go into these accounts over like a 5-year term?
So, I'll tell you, I'm just looking up, because in your finance report, I have the total for the outgoing seniors. So this year, and the final year is when they spend the most money. So the class of 2024, they spend like $17,000 this year. So, you know.
When that would be like
region.
80% of the total expenditures over the 5 years?
Yeah. So they spent 17. So in 2024, the class of 24 spent $17,000. Class of 23 spent $6,000. Sorry, not 23. That was previous. So class of 24, 17. Class of 25 was $8,000, and 26 and 27 just spent a few $100s. So it looks like it'd be around $25,000, $26,000 that the class of 24 spent. So adjusting for inflation, somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000.
Any other questions? So,
Yes.
may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the creation of a student activity account for the class of 2029.
Wow.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Michael's back up again. Q4 budget report.
Good evening, Mike McMillan, Business Manager. So, June 30th was the end of the financial year, and we closed and stopped spending money from the FY24 budget, moved into FY25. I just wanted to give you an update on how we ended the year. So I included a little report in your packet, and I'm just going to sort of pick out some of the key points to go through this evening. Not everything, but so if you have any questions or anything I don't touch on within there or anything else, please ask me tonight or at any point. So at the end of FY24, there was just 0.1% left in the budget. So we've pretty much spent the budget we left only $50,000, and that's definitely lower than previous years. But then, as we'll talk about, we did leave a good surplus in our school choice fund, and that's something I'll come on and talk about. That $50,000, so that's essentially kind of what we have left over, and that flows to our excess and deficiency fund. So the excess and deficiency fund is a bit like free cash for a school district. So we can, at future meeting when we start to do the budget, we can use that excess and deficiency fund to help offset future budgets. So that's what happens, that $50,000. So you can see, when you look at previous years, I'm actually not sure which ones are funded. Oh yeah, look, there you go. So what this chart shows, the dark blue line is how much we spent. And there's a light blue line, you can't really see, hopefully it's clearer in your packs, but the light blue line is the actual budget. And so you can see for this year, the dark blue is right up against the light blue, so we spent all, we've been close a lot. Since COVID, we've really been spending all or very close to all of our budget. And I think that's where we want to be, because we're measuring our budget. When we create our budget, we're trying to work out exactly how much we need. And we're trying to spend every penny to make sure all that money is there. And then this is just another indicator.
Sorry, I just had a quick question, Madam Chair, just on the last slide.
Yeah.
Just wondering, and maybe you just said it, I was just looking at the chart, but you said the second two quarters was above the historic trend. So first half of the year was similar to historic.
Yeah.
The second part was above it. What was the reason for that?
Yeah, so that's this chart here. So it's kind of, so basically this is along the bottoms each month of the year, and then this is how much we spent. And what I do is just using, Excel, simple forecast for, based on the expenditure from the last 5 years, and it just looks at the pattern throughout the year and projects, and ongoing increase, and projects that as how we think we'll spend our money this year. There's a sort of lower confidence bound and an upper confidence bound, and the orange is the sort of central forecast, and then this dark blue line is what we actually spent. And so, Mr. Schiff has pointed out, in the first half of the year, this blue line is below the trend, and then it kind of towards the end it gets up here before it finishes a little above the trend. So there's, to be honest, I think the main reason for that is the salaries. Our salaries are top heavy in the year, so our salaries are much lower over the summer before teachers and school comes in. So we're below. And by trend, it's not that the trend. The forecast used is not that sophisticated, so it's not fully capturing that kind of top heavy approach we have, and especially like teacher salaries, that's the biggest part. They really don't catch up until halfway through the year, and then that's when and then we have in the summer, what happens here is people get their summer checks in June, so that's why you see this jump at the end of June, because they actually get all of the pay they've had up to that point plus the money for over the summer, so they get their 26. So the staff, teachers get 26 paychecks, but they don't start until September. So that counts.
Yes.
And this is also, so this is a tool I use just to check that nothing's crazy out of whack, that I'm not because you can look at where we are and see, oh, it's fine, we've got plenty of money left. You know, if you look at it and, you know, say if you look in November, it looks like you've lost some money, just to double check that we're still in line with expenditure as we have been in the past, and no major surprises. So what this chart is again, it's the amount of money we spent along the top, and down the bottom, and along the side is the major accounts. So these are just groupings of expenditure that the state provides, but it's just a nice way, a handy way for us to break down how much we're, you know, how we spend it, how we budget, how we spend our money. I use these, we have to report to the state in, actually much more detail than this, but in these kind of buckets. So it's handy for us to use those buckets in this situation as well. So again, I follow a similar thing. This is even more complicated. So you have the light blue line, which is the budget again, and then the dark blue is expenditure. I also have a red line in here. It's hard to see again, but that shows where the budget would have been if we spent the same percentage as we did in the prior year. Does that make sense? So that's me just trying to get, so everything's going to go up because inflation's gone up and salaries have gone up. So just comparing to last year is not always that helpful because we know we should have spent more on salaries, for example, because everyone's salaries went up. However, we spent more as a proportion of the budget as we thought, and that's helpful for me and for you just to see, you know, that we're still kind of, you know, if there's a big difference between that red line and the blue line, we should have an idea why. Normally it's perfectly, you know, you should be asking me why is that different. So you can kind of see, I've sort of enlarged this, the top one up here that's in green. And so that's teachers, because I just wanted to talk, so I'm going to just quickly go through each one of these that are circled, because they kind of vary a little bit. And I just want to start with teachers. So you can see this blue line is above both where we were at the same time last year and a little bit above the budget. And that's, we actually finished the year, we had all our teachers paid, and we were actually a little below budget. But what we then did is we transferred some expenditure that would use school choice funds. So instead of using school choice funds to pay teachers that we planned, we moved that into the general fund. So we spent up, because we have surpluses in other areas, so we spend up the money in the general fund, and that leaves money in the school choice fund. And that's because we're going to, you know, as we've talked about in previous meetings, we're expecting school choice revenue to go down over the coming years, and we use that for positions. So we want to make sure we have enough money in that fund to see us like over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's kind of saving up the money that we can save up for the rainy days ahead. Does that make sense? And school choice is the money we receive for students who attend our school district that live in other towns. So if you live in Nauset or Barnstable or Dennis and you come to Monomoy, the state kind of facilitates the transfer of funds and we receive money for those students. Every year we budget some of that money to pay for teachers, and then if we don't use it, we can use it the following year and we can maintain that fund balance. So that happened here, and so our teachers, and so that's why our teachers are now a little over budget. And then further on in the agenda tonight, I'm going to ask for a budget transfer to move some money around to resolve those deficits. So the other one, which is just increasing its size here, I don't know if that actually helps with pupil services. So you can see actually we're a little below budget this time, but the red line this time last year we actually spent way more over budget. And that was a similar thing, we prepaid for transportation costs last year. So in FY23 we paid for some of our FY24 transportation costs, again because we had a surplus, so we wanted to be able to use that money. And so we paid, so that's why we were over budget on pupil services, and also why we're a little bit under budget now.
Question?
Yes.
So if you do that, is that going to become the pattern going forward?
Well, so we're not actually doing that this year.
Okay.
We just moved all the money. So, and throughout the year, that's so the other thing that I did not really pointed out, but these budgets are how we ended the year. They're not necessarily the budgets at the start of the year. And each quarter I've come before you, or 2 of the quarters I've come through to you for budget transfers. So we've transferred money out of pupil services to pay for facilities. So that's why, you know, there's only a little bit of a surplus here. But so Yeah, so really it's a one-off, so we've had a one-off, it was really helpful because we were able to use those funds to pay for all the facilities costs that we've had, that we saw increase last year. We're not planning to do that again this year, so those funds, so, yeah, we had a surplus, we've used it, we had a little bit more, and we're going to use that to maintain funds in school choice. So, I'm not planning any prepays this year. Programs with other school districts, so that includes us paying for school choice students. So where students who live in Harwich and Chatham, they attend Nauset or DY or Barnstable. We also have to pay for them. So on one hand, the money comes in, another bit it goes out. We're low again, we've got low budget again, which is great news. You know, if you're a greater percentage of students are choosing to stay in Monomoy, which is testament to all the hard work that our principals and teachers and so on are doing, and that's saving us money. And so that's a plus, is what we're able to, how we're able to resolve the deficits in other functions. All right. Other teaching services, that includes instructional assistants. It's the exact same situations with teachers, so we also transfer some instructional assistant salaries from the school choice fund into the general fund. Operations and maintenance, I've been, every meeting I get to talk to, I complain about the cost of maintaining and repairing our buildings. I don't think that's going to stop being an issue. Instructional leadership, I just highlight this because I know instructional leadership, can be a hot topic. The reason for this little surplus there is actually due to copier service and interpretation services. So we are spending more money on ensuring we have everything, documents translated and meetings, interpreters present in meetings and so on.
Question. So are you aware, I guess talking about translation services and with some things that are happening currently, is there anything coming from the state that you're aware of that helps? Or are we kind of on our own to figure that out?
So we do have, a Title III grant helps to fund a EL education. I've not seen anything specific about interpretation or reach out, because this is largely a reach out to parents and caregivers.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen anything.
I just didn't know if it was increasing, and if there was, are we on our own to cover that, or is the state aware and helping districts out, I guess is my question.
Yeah, as of right now, we're still just on our own.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Lastly, benefits and fixed charges, so a tiny bit under budget. Part of that is because copier service, I know this is very mundane, but the copier service was previously included as a lease in some contracts, and actually it was paid as a separate cost. And that's why it was in instructional leadership. So that's partly the reason. And the last thing I just to highlight is fixed assets. So we did have planned to install outside lighting in the middle school, and unfortunately we weren't able to get that done. It became much more complicated than hoped, and we're still looking for the right solution for that. So watch this space, but that did lead to a surplus there. All right, so I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but any questions on any of that before I jump on to revenue? All right, so revenue. Oh, sorry.
Just one question here, just looking at the bottom of this page, didn't see it up there, but just in terms of expenditures for substitutes, you said really spiked, and what was the reason why that had gone up so much in
23. So yeah, so that was one of my ones to watch. So I was keeping an eye on substitute costs, because when I was creating the FY24 budget, I was very anxious because the substitute costs, this is kind of coming out of COVID. I think we're from 22 to 23, we saw this big spike where it increased like $100,000 or more on a, and I think, is that what it was? I can't remember what I said. So yeah, 31% increase, $120,000 in substitute costs. It really depends on, the biggest increase was in long-term substitutes. So why that happened to happen last year, but it doesn't seem to have been part of a long-term trend, because FY24 is back is much lower than 23 was, kind of back down in line with the 5-year trend, the 5-year average before 23. So, we're talking, it's hard to pin a particular reason on it. I think it was partly coming out of COVID, people's expectations and health expectations changed. So, there's nothing specific that you could put your finger on? So,
Deferred maintenance
revenue.
during COVID.
Revenue. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things here. So this is basically all that we bring in money for a whole bunch of reasons. You know, the biggest part is the assessments we get from the two towns. That's this top line here. So just to highlight that, to say that that should always be on budget, because we just, you know, they've all voted it. They just give us what we ask for, and they give it to us, you know, each month. But the total budgeted revenue, which includes all the assessments, but also the state aid and other revenue, which includes the money we get from the state, Medicaid, and interest. So that was, so from the budget to the revenue, the difference is $718,000 to the good. So we brought in $700,000 more than we thought we would. And so that's great news, because that goes into our excess and deficiency. So whereas we thought our excess and deficiency, you know, we had budgeted $800,000 from our excess and deficiency to offset the budget, and we were able, and we almost completely reimbursed that. So that's covered that. So that means our excess and deficiency doesn't go down. And actually, I think our excess and deficiency, because there's other things that play into that, actually I think our excess and deficiency might go up a little bit, which is good news, and that helps us offset future budgets. So that's good news. And then there's just below that, so these are items, these are budgets, this is revenue categories are not budgeted per se. So these are things that are provided mostly by the state or the government, or the federal government for particular purposes. So circuit breaker is a grant we receive from the state to offset special education costs. Our expenditure on special education costs increased at a higher rate than previous years, so the state gave us additional funding to help with that. So that's why we saw an increase. So we get to spend some of it this year, which helped offset our costs, and then some of it next year. So that's good news. Federal grants, they're down a little bit because that includes ESSER, and we're coming to the end of ESSER, and that'll be a future agenda topic. Food service is up, there's great news. We have that's big. The state continues to provide free meals for all students, and offset partly by funding from the federal government, and so we have seen an increase in our food service revenue. Other revenue, that just includes, a whole bunch of things, also things that we don't get to spend, like student activity accounts, and that funding is up slightly. And the last one is school choice, as we talked about, so our revenue from school choice is up. So that's all the financial stuff. If there was any questions about that, I was just going to give you a very quick update on summer work. So we have, you know, the custodians are working hard. You know, this seemed like a really busy summer. They've been working, you know, fingers to the bones, getting the buildings ready, working around all the educational programs that are still happening in some of the schools to make sure the schools are ready. We've also had a number of projects. We replaced a carpet with tiles in a number of buildings, and so particularly in the middle school in Chatham, and actually we had requested a colour and the wrong colour came in the tiles. We had like 2 weeks to go before, you know, it's only like, this was like last week, and we were in slight panic mode because the previous tiles, the previous phone has been ripped up, and then we didn't have the right tiles to put down. So we went down to look at it, we were worried, and we went down to look at it, but we'd ordered grey tiles, which is great for maintenance because they don't show up a lot of dirt, but it is a little dull in the classroom, and the ones they delivered instead were these nice bright white ones. There's a little bit of a pattern on them, bright white. But when I looked at them, I thought, these are nice. So these look good. So we installed them. I mean, I didn't, not just me, I did get some, so other people agreed with me. So we installed these, and I think actually it really brightens up the classroom. So it looks really nice. So in these some of these classrooms in the middle school. I will say, not intentionally, I think one thing for future discussions is going to be what we're doing about furniture in the middle school, because I do think we might need to be thinking about replacing that soon. And then we're also we're using ESSER funds to upgrade the courtyard at Chatham Elementary School. I'm really excited about this because we're going to make that into a really low maintenance but high functioning courtyard. Students and teachers will be able to use that space for education and recess. And then we did have another superintendent's update on the middle school siding report. So I know you can't quite see it, but we had the architects come down with some contractors, and they've been taking cuts from the side of the building to see what's behind there and start develop what the project will look like. And last, very quickly, we did have some staffing changes. So for facilities, the head custodian here at the high school, John Larson, has decided he does not want to be in that position anymore. He's going to be a custodian, but not the lead. So Rihanna Caivano from the middle school, who's been a great asset at the middle school, she will now be a great asset at the high school. She'll be the lead custodian here. And Chuck Potter, who's a custodian here at the high school, will be becoming the lead at the middle school, which is always nice when you get to promote people from within. So he'll be the new lead custodian at the middle school, and they will be backfilling some of the other positions. So it's all exciting news with the lead custodians. We also had a change in central office where our district accountant left. She retired. And that was really big for me, because she's my right-hand person. And then we have Mary Byrne, who's replaced Eileen, and Mary's doing a great job so far.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Oh, and I have one more thing.
I think we have a transfer, don't we? A couple things here. Looks like.
So if I would just go back and say I can show you what these budgets, so these budget transfers are about resolving the gaps. So where the dark blue line is larger than the light blue line, or the school committee policy says that requires your approval for us to spend those major accounts. So to move money between those major accounts, because really that's what you approve when we set the budget. So some of these are relatively small amounts, like $29,000 into professional development. And some of them are larger amounts, particularly the ones to move the salaries from school choice into the general fund. So I can go into this in more detail, or if you have any questions, I kind of listed out all the different transfers we'd need. And so we used to do this, just for people who are new to this, it used to be done by account lines, so it'd be like pages and pages of pages, because we have hundreds of account lines. And we changed the policy so it's by major account to make it a little more transparent in a way. So that's why it's kind of the reason, and then it's the major account, and that's what you're approving.
Okay. Sorry, just a second to read it. Does anybody have any questions for Michael? Do I have a motion? Which do you want first?
The one on your right, the one on your right, that one.
The transfers? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'd like to make a motion to approve the FY24 Quarter 4 budget transfers as listed in the memorandum provided to the school committee.
Second?
I will second it.
Questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Unanimously passes.
Thank you very much.
And
You're going to do prior year. That is one of the action items.
the other gentleman?
Should I talk to that item?
Oh, yeah.
So also in your packs is prior year is a memorandum for us to pay prior year invoices that have not been encumbered. So this is where the general fund essentially is that which is funded by assessments and state educational funding, and that those costs are supposed to be used for costs related to that year. So when we receive invoices now that relate to last year, we're using FY25 funds to pay for FY24 costs. So we try to have encumbered the funds from FY24 in order to do that, but sometimes if we didn't know that the purchase had been made, or, which is often happens, we encumbered $100 and then the bill's $105, then we have to come back to you for approval. So I included a memorandum that lists all the additional ones. It's around $29,000, and that just allows us to pay those bills.
Questions? Do you have a motion?
Sure. I move to approve the payment of $29,355.13 in the fiscal year 2024 invoices not previously encumbered as presented to the school committee.
Second?
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Approved, abstain, opposed, unanimously.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. Professional title change, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment to Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. So we're bringing this forward from a prior executive session to public session. And we have any questions or discussion that we want to bring up about the title change?
I can just provide some context. This is a conversation that I've been having for a little over a year now, but if we look at what Dr. Millen's job does, and we look at all of the job-alike people across the Cape that are doing that job, they all carry the title of Assistant Superintendent. We're paying Dr. Millen to do that job. We're paying her equivalent or to that group of other individuals who are carrying assistant superintendent titles, who are really in charge of instruction and learning within the school district. And I think that it's important to also validate the great work that Robin has been doing with the title. So hence the conversation.
Any questions?
I have one question. Just a clarifying question, in changing this title, does it have an impact on the budget at all?
It doesn't. So as I said, we are paying Robin, comparable. I've done sort of an analysis of what the other individuals that have her job-alike role, and we're paying that. So she's being paid for the job she's doing. I think we should, at least from the superintendent, would recommend that we give her the title for the job that she's doing.
Any other questions, comments? No? Do I have a motion? Oh,
Make a motion, Madam Chair, to change the title change from Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment to Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Passes unanimously.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Assistant Superintendent.
Moving on to the subcommittee representative liaison reports. Do we have any reports? No. Okay.
Madam Chair, I just have a question.
Of course.
Understanding the subcommittees, but in terms of the being representative or liaison reports, how do any of us get involved with the different organizations or other committees that are outside this group, outside this committee, and how do we go about doing that?
So we actually did pass out the subcommittee liaison reports assignments.
Right, I'm just wondering is how do you get involved with and be the liaison or the representative to those particular meetings or committees?
So they're assigned at the beginning of the year,
Right.
and then when those meetings start to come up, people are communicated to about, okay, this is starting here,
Okay.
or I know, Jess, you've got a lot of connections with is the housing one that you're on? Yeah.
So they'll communicate to us
Yeah.
that there's a meeting or, okay.
And Excellent. Some
Is
are
there
more
one in
active than
particular
others.
you're concerned with, or which ones?
Oh, no, I know which ones, I'm just wondering is how
How it works.
How does it all
Yeah.
work?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Did we have to did we have to reach out to them, or did they reach out to us?
Yeah, no, they reach out to
Okay.
you, and Leah brought up a good point, some are more active than others. And so if there are assignments where you're interested in something else because there's more motion, no, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah, but
because
that
people
wasn't,
are
I was
always
just
willing.
wondering is,
Yeah.
how does it all work? How does it get going?
Yeah. Of course, go ahead.
It's also if you're, like, when a policy change happens, and that you would fall under that section of the meeting. So like you would be the liaison for the policy subcommittee that would be reporting out. Does that make sense?
Not to the subcommittees.
Right.
It's more the liaisons and the representative to other organizations outside of this committee.
Right. Do you mind? Oh, you want to say something? Go ahead,
I
Leah.
did want to say something, so especially for our new members who came in May, when we're starting to wind down a year, this is when we start to wind it back up again. So you'll start hearing from me about scheduling, depending on the subcommittee, meetings for superintendent evaluation or finance. That's going to be a mover and a groover. We've got negotiations with the SEIU. So now you're going to start hearing from me about getting dates on calendars. Thank you. Just to be, yeah.
And if you don't mind, for the liaison, I don't have it in front of me, but I know Jess is the liaison for the collaborative, right? And then I do for Westgate and the legislative liaison. So those types of roles, if we're in those, whatever we're doing, like mine happens to be pretty active, so I'll just reach out to the chair or during an agenda meeting. If I've got something to report out, we do it through the chair so that it can be on the agenda.
Understood, sure.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, I just wanted to know is how do we get involved with them, so.
Yeah, and I can't remember, are you linked to the town? Are you the town liaison? I'd have to look at
For the
thing.
select board, right.
Oh, select board,
Right, so,
okay.
for instance, how would that work?
That's a good question.
Oh, that's something that we have to
Yeah.
talk about this year as a
Yeah.
group as well, because I think we want more interaction, but I think that's probably a discussion for a different
Yeah,
time.
we can put it maybe on the next agenda or something,
Yeah.
to talk a little bit more.
About the real expectations this year for those.
Yeah.
Would the select board reach out to us, or is that something more that we have to reach out to select board if there's something, get it onto their agenda?
It depends, I mean, I will speak.
Agendized conversation.
Yes, exactly.
We have to take this to another-
That's true, yeah, we'll have to
another
take
night.
it to the next, but I
Okay.
did just want to say that for myself, I'm always, not always, I will watch select board meetings, just so I'm kind of in the loop on some things, so I'm not kind of blindsided, so some of it is just us wanting to stay informed. So anyway, we'll talk about it in another agenda.
We'll add it
Yeah.
to the next one so that we can discuss it in detail. Yeah. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
I don't have anything for recognitions, just a quick sort of overall recap of the administrative retreat, and I'll presume we'll put together some presentation to kind of help the school committee understand what we're, some of the jargon that's about to come out of my mouth, let's say. So the focus of our time together has largely been around developing common and consistent multi-tiered systems of support across the district and how we can best use data to drive decisions, both academic, social, emotional, and behavioral for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 interventions. How's that for sort of like completely jargon-related, but it's really looking at how we can support kids both in the classroom and students who need extra supports out of the classroom, and in all facets. In terms of the middle school siding project, I'll expand this to just be the middle school project because it's, as Michael showed, the architects have been punching holes in the building just to go and make sure that there's sort of a sound structure. We haven't gotten the overall report back, but at least a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from the architects is it seems on some from the first go-round that we've got sort of a sound structure with challenges, and one of the challenges that was pointed out and I think on some level we've been noticing this ourselves as our offices are inside the middle school for the central office, is that apparently the contractor decades ago that put on the last round of siding didn't flash the building, so above windows and you're supposed to have flashing to go keep water from intruding. It's also a building that has caulk around windows that, when having done home improvement projects myself, and you'll see that the caulk, it says like, guaranteed to last 20 years. Well, there's caulking around some windows that's beyond that. So we have had some spaces in the building that have had some water intrusion around the windows. In fact, I think a lot of the middle school, if you walk through, you'll see minor examples that, and it could be just that a window was left open during a rainstorm 20 years ago, but you'll see little examples of where there has been some water damage, but you'll see some spots where windowsills were, are like very bowed. So the architects were saying, okay, these are spots that we need to go look at. So this created sort of a domino effect that has taken up a lot of my time, Michael's time, our middle school head custodian's time, and their facilities director time, as we're trying to go and manage what happens when you have moisture intruding. You start to get mold. So we have been working to go remediate some mold that's happening along the windows, along with what I refer to this summer as self-inflicted wounds of mold, where we have some spaces where we have put in mini-split air conditioners and have had people, who, because it's been such a hot, humid summer, they're running the mini-splits, but we've learned, the mini-splits are new to us, but we've learned the hard way that if you have the doors open and you're running that mini-split, it starts to condense, or one of the cooling elements starts to condense and create drips inside the building. So we now are having some mini-split work to go and insulate to prevent the dripping from happening, and have to go back and now deal with the outcome of the drips. So we will have all of that put back together, before the start of the new school year. But I think it gives us something that we're going to have to work on. And I have been telling Abby and others that that the siding project, you'd love to go and say, we have some water intrusion around windows, let's go fix it today. But this is a process. So the architects are assessing the status of the building, and then the architects have to go and draw up, here's the scope of work. That has to go out to bid, and you have to get a contractor. So odds are it's going to be sometime, a year and a half from now that all of this can be addressed, presuming it all comes in under the budget that the town's approved. So we have that little piece of news from the middle school. The other thing that came in, I think since the agenda went out, is we got a phone call, or we had a virtual meeting with MSBA about the roof project. So the good news is only 72 schools in the state of Massachusetts have applied for new roofs. And the MSBA has narrowed that down to 71 that are qualified to be sort of further investigated. So we've made it to the short list of 71. But MSBA will have a couple representatives here on Monday to get up on the roof and see where our roof stands versus the other 70 school roofs in the Commonwealth. And then we should find out in October whether or not we've made the short list for the roof project. But then if we made the short list for the roof project, the heavy lifting begins, because then we have to go, secure the funding to have the initial process to go and get it set for town meeting, to go have a vote at town meeting for a roof project, if we make the short list. So it's progress. I was kind of hoping if they were emailing and coming down that means that it's a really short list, but we also know that the accelerated repairs have been deferred for a number of years. So there are a lot of school districts that have had roofs that have been deferred for a few years now. I think they said that the reimbursement is going to be about, if we make this round, about 37% of the cost of the roof would be covered by the state if those sections of the roof are over 25 years old. If they're not over 25 years old, there's no reimbursement. And again, that is going to be part of their assessment of the roof on Monday.
Question. Did you update the administrative retreat? Because I saw the photos on social media. It looked so much fun. Where was it?
Well, we've
Location?
we've been meeting several days across the summer, so.
Oh, I just saw these one photos. It looked like it was at a lodge or something.
Yeah, so we've been, we've been either in the central office over in Chatham or in the library here, and we had Gen Police help secure a bargain rate where there was apparently 2 days that the Pelham House had a small room that wasn't in use, so we at least got. How about this? Everybody else got to see the ocean. I apparently chose a seat with my back to the ocean.
It looked nice. It looked like summer camp. It was kind of like a lodge look.
Yeah, so there was like a gas fireplace in those beds.
All right.
Anything else? We've had the presentation of the warrants. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:57.